give you a quick introduction about him. So, Love Zohar is a seasoned governance, risk, and compliance professional and certified ISO lead implementer with over a decade of experience in cybersecurity and information security training. As the founder of Cyber GRC, he has delivered 10,000 plus hours of training to 20,000 plus professionals across 15 plus countries, empowering global teams to implement and audit ISO 27001, ISO 22301, ISO 27701, and ISO 42001 framework. Loves practical hands-on teaching style, bridge technical depth with real-world application, making complex GRC concept simple and actionable. He holds multiple certification including ISO 27001 and 42001 lead implementer, CompTIA Security Plus, ITIL V4, CCNA, and Prince 2 practitioner.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Gupshup. Today, we are not going to discuss ISO 27002 as a theory standard. We are going to talk about what the market is actually asking, because the interviews don't stop at what is this control, they move to how did you implement it. Of course. And that's where most professionals struggle. So today, let's break ISO 27002 down from a practical perspective. Cloud environments, monitoring, vendor risk, and real control execution. So let's begin with our questionnaire. And my first question is, how do you implement ISO 27002 controls in a multi cloud environment?
Yeah, to start with, that's a good question. I see that, as you said, Aditi, till yesterday we were speaking about control with respect to the on-prem environment, whereas today I see that you have a question on a cloud environment altogether. Yes, this is in demand. One should know as a candidate, definitely. See, what we have to understand here is, as company move to the cloud and multi-cloud environment, the demand is no longer only towards the framework, right? But for practicalities like security controls plays a crucial role. That is where this ISO 27002 basically provides a foundation. Now, coming back to your question, how do we implement ISO 27001 controls in cloud environment? See, what exactly we as a candidate, we have to assess the question first. What is that interviewer is looking out of this question? Basically, the interviewer is not testing just your cloud knowledge here. They are checking whether you understand turning security rules into the cloud settings. Like it can be access permission, logging, enabling the logging, encryption. All this has to be enabled in cloud environment like AWS, Azure, right? GCP. So always think as ISO 27002 as a principle, not just as a tools, right? Tools changes, but not the controls. The objective of the controls stays same,
Yes, sir.
right? So
Yeah,
in my view, like this should be the focus when we implement controls in the cloud, basically,
yeah.
right? Thank you.
What about you, love, sir, if you want to add something?
So basically, we need to first of all create a cloud migration plan. For example, what exactly do we need to migrate to the cloud? See, you can't take everything to the cloud. Let's be very clear on that. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is how you need to answer such questions in the interview. If somebody asks you, you need to start with the cloud migration plan. Decide first of all what all systems, what all data will you move to the cloud and why. The big question should not be what data. The big question should be why you want to move this particular storage, why you want to move this particular server, what is the need. Is the need to satisfy cost cutting, is the need to satisfy mobility, what exactly are you looking at? That should be the first question. Okay,
Yeah.
then decide which cloud type are you going to use. Are you going to use infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, or software as a service? So all these things now you need to decide. Okay, accordingly now you need to create the policies. and these policies will be now defining who is responsible for what. For example, you know that there is a shared responsibility model between the cloud service provider and the client. So cloud service provider is responsible for the infrastructure. However, the client is responsible for the data security and all the access, user access. This is the responsibility of the client, right? So here
Yeah.
you need to now define this matrix first of all. Who is responsible for what? And then you make a list of all the cloud assets. Okay. So all these are now 27,001, 27,002 controls only. Okay. So we
Yes.
discussed about roles and responsibilities. Again, it's a control. We discussed about asset management. Again, it's a control. Now you basically try to classify what all information do you have on the cloud. Again, information classification is a 27,002 control. So this is how 27,002 now helps you navigate this multi-cloud environment actually. But again, for somebody who has only learned this on paper, it would be very difficult because each and every control, whatever we are mentioning here, solves a particular purpose. Okay. For example, how would you now do the classification? If somebody has not done a classification, they won't understand. What are the different tiers in the classification level? All these are questions that people would think about until and unless they have not done it practically. That is why we say go for practical implementation,
Yeah.
27,002. Okay. Then you basically go for access control in cloud. Basically, you try to control the access. You go for multi-factor authentication. You go for least privilege access. Again, all these are controls, 27,002. Okay. Then you basically go for encryption. Again, cryptography is a control of 27,002. DLP, data leakage prevention, again is a control. So all
Yeah.
these controls are there, which you now try to introduce in a multi-cloud environment. See, the only thing how to manage a multi-cloud environment from a, since you have asked in a multi-cloud environment type of a question, the main thing should be to have a single policy for any cloud service provider. That should be a single approach. Because as an organization, you can't change the security policy every time. So,
Yes.
be it a multi-cloud environment, be it a one cloud or two cloud or three cloud, your security policy should remain the same. That's it. And as per the security policy, now you can manage the multi-cloud environment also. Because will you change your access control based on the cloud environment? No. Will you change your password complexity based on the cloud environment? No. So there has to be a unified single cloud security policy to address a multi-cloud environment would be the approach here. Okay.
Yeah. That's actually a great start. And moving on for the next question. Which controls apply when an organization shift from on premise to cloud?
Well, it's this question is all about migrating from on-prem to the cloud, as Love was mentioning. It is all about first you have to prepare, like you have to decide what all the like assets, what all the servers like you have to migrate to the cloud, and why are you migrating that, right? See, migrating to the cloud is not only about technical changes, right? But also it is a change in the risk, change in the vendor, and the control responsibility altogether. This is the core aspects. It's not only a technical change. See, when we move from on-prem to the cloud, basically the control part, the whatever the controls in ISO 27002 we are talking about, okay, it will be the same, but the focus will be towards more of access control, encryption, logging in, and shared responsibility, right? So we should always remember security responsibilities don't go away in the cloud, right? It will just be shared between the vendors, between the company and the cloud provider, basically. See, these are the few controls we have to focus on when we are migrating from on-prem to the cloud. Over to you, Love, your view. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said before, you have to be very cautious. First of all, everything can't be taken into cloud. Make very very clear note of that. So why you are moving to cloud? What is the business decision behind this movement? Should be the first thing you need to understand. Is it cost cutting? Is it you want to have a multi-location mobility type of approach? What exactly are you looking at the end of the day? That should be the starting point in such scenarios. Okay, because again Initially it looks good, I have seen on the cloud also, but as soon as you migrate more and more stuff to the cloud, I have seen then the complexity increases, and with the complexity also the costs also increase over a time. That's why I have also came across few companies who have shifted back from cloud to on premise also. So because these things are, if they're not handled properly, they can actually turn into a lot of huge amount of investment which you have never even predicted also.
So,
So
see,
that
again,
is where you
shifting
have to be.
back,
Yeah,
yeah, shifting back again, it's a overhead to the company itself, right?
definitely,
So
yes.
we need to have a right strategy when we think of moving into the cloud. That is where all this knowledge about the control comes into the play. It's not all about we have a different controls. It is about how well we know about the control, right? What is the necessity of having that control in the organization?
Yes,
That
sir.
is where you all learn in this particular course, ISO 27002. Basically, we are very proud to launch this. We are starting this on 9th of March, okay, where you will deep dive into all the exclusive control 93 controls, practical hands-on training, right?
Yes,
Go ahead,
sir.
Aditi. Go with your questions. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so how do you ensure logging and monitoring in AWS/Azure as per ISO 27002?
Yeah, I think yesterday also we spoke about logging and monitoring. See,
Yeah.
logging and monitoring is not all about collecting the data, basically, right? But it is also about reviewing the data or reviewing the logs of what we collected, how the alerting mechanism is working. Sorry. Okay, who
Yes.
is responding to, basically for those alerts, or we can say responding to the incidents, right? Logging and monitoring are as per ISO 27002 means enabling activity logs, basically security alerts, centralized monitoring using tools like AWS Cloud Trial, AWS Monitoring, or Azure Monitoring, right? Well, this is how we can ensure logging and monitoring on the cloud, basically. You want to add up your ways?
Yeah, see, logging and monitoring is very important. First of all, if you do not have logging and monitoring, I've seen a lot of instances where the information which you think is stored on the buckets is not there. When you go after a few months, you see that information is lost. So then you get a shock. Where did it go? Because we were taking a backup every day. But when you go to that backup bucket, it is empty. So these are the scenarios where you will need logging and monitoring. Okay, because without logging and monitoring, how would you check what happened during that interval? Did somebody accidentally delete those buckets? Did somebody, was the backup actually happening or not? These are the questions that you can ask. If you don't have a logging and monitoring enabled, you can't do anything basically. So first of all, in AWS, there's something called as a cloud trail. You need to enable the cloud trail. That's the first thing I would say. Okay, and this will basically enable the logs for all the regions of AWS wherever you are logged in. Okay, then in
Yes, sir.
basically Azure, you can enable the Azure activity logs. Okay, this will now enable the diagnostic log settings in the Azure, and this will basically send the logs to something called as a log analytics workspace sort of thing in Azure. Okay, this is where they collect the logs. So this is where all the actions are now started to record. Okay, but again, for what all services are you going to enable these logs? That is a very big question. First of all, so you need to only go for critical services. Don't go for everything again. Otherwise, you will be overutilizing the thing, and that is where cloud starts getting very expensive. Jen. This is where people fail to understand things. So you have to only enable firewall logs, critical database access logs, storage access logs, security group changes logs. These are few things that you can go for. Don't go for everything. You don't need log for everything. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Then once you have got the logs, you make sure that they are protected from tampering. Either you do encryption on them, or and basically you have to retain them. Okay, you have to retain the logs also. Okay, either use the centralized logs monitoring service by these cloud providers, or there are now third parties also, Jayant, where you can actually send these
True.
logs to third party tools. There are many tools. There's one tool called Logly which you can use. There are many tools like that, right? So you can use those tools to have a centralized location, and make sure this centralized location is in your uh, country only. That has to be there, because nowadays the a lot of compliances are coming where they want you to store the logs also inside the country itself. You can't go across border. So this is a very important thing. If somebody is using cloud service provider and they are storing clouds in the US region, let me be very let me warn you there. You have to be very careful. What kind of logs are these, and why are you storing in the US region? Tomorrow there can be questions. Okay, so you should always store in the same region in which you are located. For example, if we are in India, we should store the logs for Mumbai region only. We should not go for any other region. So this is very important from a cloud perspective. Okay, and yeah,
Yeah.
this is basically about the logging thing. You have to enable the logs first of all, then you have to protect the logs, then you have to keep it in a centralized location, then you need to basically make sure that the logs are happening. Like a continuous monitoring also needs to happen here in this case. Otherwise, after some time, like I mentioned, you think that it is happening, but it is already stopped. So
Now,
I
Yes.
but
actually,
what
yeah,
is your
go ahead, go ahead.
take on the logs getting cross-bordered as per the regulatory controls?
It is
Do we
not
have
allowed.
any regulatory? Not allowed, right? Yes.
See,
Mm.
from across the border, how will you restore? For example, let's say you're storing logs in the US, right?
Right.
Your restoration time will increase. If tomorrow any incident happens, if you are across border, there will be latency, right? You can't restore the logs immediately. And if you can't restore the logs, how would you triage the incident? So these are the questions. Even if regulatory is not asking you to do that, it's a simple due diligence you can also
Exactly.
do by yourself, right?
Right.
Because why do we store the logs? To try some incident, right? Tomorrow if something happens. But if you are not able to download for the next 12 hours, then what is the purpose? Okay, so that is why
Right.
these things are there. Yes. And yes, there are some compliances also that will ask you to only store within the country itself. You can't go outside as well for storing the logs also. Okay, so that is there. I think certain 180 days retention also mentions that
Right.
part, that you need to keep it in India only. It is a mandate over there. Yes.
Right.
Okay,
See,
so
this is
these
what
things are
we
there.
have to understand, I
Yeah.
think, Lau. Just one control, when we talk about a control, something known as logging and monitoring that logging is debating for about 2 to 3 minutes. Then think about understanding 93 different controls in different aspects, right? Doing it same controls, implementing in the on-prem, implementing in the cloud, that too in the multi-cloud environment. How different it is to learn different aspects. All these things, I think, we will learn only when we implement during our learnings,
See,
right?
Jayant, what is the problem? Problem with the mindset for any individual is that yes, they are saying the right thing. Everybody knows we are saying the right thing, but unless this will hit them somewhere, only then they will realize this. That is the main problem. Okay, so people are basically waiting for something to happen to them. Maybe not able to clear an interview or not able to get a project. Only then they realize the importance of these basic things, because all this is fundamental. If a client comes to your organization and asks you or two questions and you're not able to answer, what is the use of having ISO 27001 implemented? Tell me that.
Very
No
true,
use,
very
right?
yes.
So that is where these people realize that no, somebody was saying on that webinar, the 93 controls can be implemented practically. We should have joined the webinar. That is where all these recalling comes in, because it's a psychological tendency. We only do something when we are actually we have to do it. It is like that. So till that point, people will say, okay, ये तो रोज आ जाते हैं वेबिनार पे बोल के कुछ भी चले जाते हैं.
Bas, bas,
It is
bas.
like that only until and unless they get to that scenario where they feel that urge. Okay, no, these people were right. They were saying the right thing, and now we are suffering only because of that. Okay, when they lose a client, when they lose an interview, that is where they will come to realize, no, 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 these people were right. We could have done that at that time. Okay, so this is the normal human tendency.
Well, that's a very good advice from Mr. GRC Guru himself, right? I request each one of you to understand what exactly is mean to say. It is very important for you to learn practical aspects. Maybe in GRC, even if it is not GRC also, we have to adapt that in our learning aspects. It has
I
to
still
be a
remember,
practical way of learning. Yes.
yeah, Jayant, I still remember, and you also remember a lot of CISSPs joining our batches. And you themselves, you ask them why they are joining. CISSPs should not join
True.
ISO batch. But what were they saying? They were only there for practical, right? Because they also realized that even after doing a gold certificate like CISSP, they were they were not able to understand the ground reality, like what is happening on the ground, how to implement this standard. That was their main question, right? But again,
Right.
until and unless they came across that scenario, that is the main point. Because
Yes.
after getting a gold certificate, then you realize, if you are not able to clear an interview even after that, then you realize, oh, what is missing now? अभी इससे ऊपर तो कुछ है भी नहीं, CSSP के ऊपर कहाँ जाएं? So then they realize, no, there is some aspect which is missing now. Then they reach for these things. Again, as I said, it's a human tendency. Until and unless you
True.
will get hit on the wall, only then you will realize. But what
See,
we are here, yeah,
one is
go
human
ahead, go ahead.
tendency. Other part, we are not been taught to think about practical aspects. Now somebody is telling you, it's up to you how you make your use of it now, right?
That's it.
So simple. Try to analyze what we are saying. If you think that this is, yes, this is the right piece of advice that you are getting on this call, just go for it. Right. Yeah, that was a big question I had, Love, when you said like about CSSP. Initially, when you saw that CSSP are coming back for implementation courses, that too being a golden certificate in the industry. Again, after doing so much of efforts, they have a certification, they hold a certifications. Like, later, I realized that they could be able to achieve it only theory, right? Rather, if they could have gone through the practical aspects, it would have taken their half of the efforts rather than putting so much of efforts, right?
See, rather than efforts, I would say the understanding also becomes easier. Okay, once you do it on the ground, you see the real challenges, then it's easier to even understand half of the concepts of CISSP also. I would say that, right?
Right,
Yeah.
And
right.
definitely it will ease out the process. Okay, and you will be more comfortable. I can say that definitely. Okay, and again, CSSP is a great certification. It's a gold certification. Everybody should do it. We are always for it. It's nothing like, we are not for CSSP. I think everybody should do it, whoever is in the information security domain. However, what approach I would suggest, again, this is a personal opinion, Jen, go for a practical implementation first, then go for these courses like CISSP, CISM, CISA. Then they will make more sense to you. Okay, like for example, rather than going directly to CISA, you go for an auditing course where you can learn how to do audit from a hands-on perspective. Then you do CISA, it will make more sense. Very simple. Okay, so this
See,
should be the approach that I would recommend for anybody.
see some CISSP, all those are managerial level certification is what I categorize it as, right? So once you start as a implementation auditing, then they should get to do managerial certifications where they understand the complete paradigm of implementation. What is technical aspects? What is managerial challenges? What is we mean by security implementing the end to end in the organization? Good. That's a great
Yeah.
discussion. Definitely. Great insight.
We digress a little bit, but I think the digression will help somebody.
Yes. Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on. How do you manage privileged access in cloud environments?
Again, I think it continues with the previous discussion what we had actually when Love was mentioning it's all about safeguarding the logs. What exactly we how do you safeguard it? So we should not be allowing like even though admin has access to delete or modify the accounts, but again it's very crucial for us to understand how do we control the admin rights, right? That is what as a implementer you should know how to control the admin accounts in the cloud so that they are used safely and not misused here. Like we say, instead of giving a permanent admin access, we give it only when it's needed, or when it have a right approval, and it should have a multi-factor authentication also, right? Or there is something known as roles based access. Based on their role or position in the organization, they should be given access. Well, I see these are all the few privilege management procedure that goes good well or goes well with the cloud atmosphere. Right now, good, what to you?
Yeah, definitely, yes. So basically, first of all, let us try to understand what is the privilege access. Okay, because I don't think everybody would know about what is privilege access. First of all, so privilege access is basically people who can do special things. Now, what are these privileged things, special things that they can do? They can basically create servers, delete servers, create firewall rules, change firewall rules. These people can access any data. They can create new admin users. They can disable logging also. So these are special privileges that they have. That is why it's called a privilege access. And normally there are certain accounts in AWS and Azure that have that functionality. And those are called root accounts, global administrators, and IAM admins. These are the roles which are there for these privileges designated. Okay. So basically, you need to manage these privileges. Now, first of all, there is a tool which we can use in this case. If you want to manage this tool is called a privilege access management tool, also called as a PAM solution. Okay, so you can use this PAM tool. They can basically, put it on a cloud environment, and you can use this. So basically, what this tool will do, they will basically, in case any privilege access is basically requested for, they will record all the privilege sessions, and they will require approval workflows without which you can't go for a privilege access altogether. Okay, first of all, it will deny it. That is the first thing. And secondly, if you are able to do it, then it will record all the sessions, right? So this is the beauty of a PAM solution, Jen, which is used in this case. And now, secondly, if you don't have a PAM solution, again, nothing to worry. Basically, you avoid certain things in this case. For example, never use AWS root account for your day-to-day activity. Okay, always try not to use the root account. It's a best practice never to use the root account, and try to use least privilege principle. Only give people access for the work that they need it for, not for the work that they might need in the future. Okay, least privilege access is always recommended. Mandate a multi-factor authentication. This will also ensure that there is no access creep. Only certain people who have the access will be able to, get that job done. And there is one new thing called the just-in-time control. Okay, which is called a JIT. Now, what this just-in-time means, you are only allowed to have a privilege access only for a particular time interval, and automatically it will be revoked after that. So this is a very beautiful control set. Like only for 2 hours you will have a privilege access. After 2 hours it will get revoked automatically. So if you want to perform a task, let's say you want to configure a firewall rule, it won't take more than 1 hour, right? So after 1 hour, automatically your access will be revoked. So this is called a just-in-time control. So these controls are there to manage privilege access in the cloud environment. Okay, but again, see, logging is very important in this case also, because if the logging is not there, then how would you ensure that this access creep is happening? Okay, so again, logging has to be ensured in certain scenarios. Okay, so
Yes,
these are very practical questions what Aditi has brought up today, because these are the real challenges which the companies are facing with the cloud environments. Okay, so the topic of this podcast should be challenges the organization facing with the cloud environment. Actually, because since the beginning we are discussing that only. Okay,
yeah,
so
sir.
Right, right,
so
right.
actually it's a very good for somebody who is from a cloud background to watch this particular session, I would say. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, the very last question from my side is, how do you validate that your cloud vendor meets ISO 27002 control expectations?
Go ahead, love. You can take it up. Yeah.
See, it's a very interesting question. Basically, you know that we can't audit the cloud vendors, especially the public cloud. We can't audit. Everybody knows that, right? Can you audit AWS? No. Can you audit Azure? No. And there's a specific reason behind that. And all these things we discuss in the training, so I don't take much time to explain why we can't do that. But yes, there is a reason why we can't do that. Definitely, maybe in some other podcast I'll discuss. I'll tell you why you cannot audit a public cloud service provider, because it's a different discussion altogether, Chen. I don't want to take it here. So basically, how to validate now? Since you can't audit, then how to validate? That's a big question now. So basically, you have to check. There is few independent certifications like SOC 2 Type 2 report. You can check ISO 27001 certificate from the cloud service provider. For if you are storing a personal data, then you go for ISO 27701 from the cloud service provider. If you are storing the payment transaction or any sort of transactional data from a credit card perspective, then you can go for PCI DSS. Okay, if any payment data is involved. But in these certifications also, you need to check a few things. It's not like if they have given a certificate to you, then you are good to go. No, you have to check the certificate scope, whether the scope applies to your service or not. And secondly, you need to check the certificate validity, like certificate is valid or already expired 2 years back. Okay, so these are the things that you need to check in the certification also. And for SOC 2 reporting also, you need to read the reports. You need to understand, are there any major findings? Are there any control exceptions? How are the issues resolved? Okay, all these things SOC 2 report will tell you. Okay, so these are basically few things that you can do for a cloud service provider, because as I said, you can't audit them. Audit them is not, I don't say it's easy. I don't say it's not possible actually, because you can't audit them. It's very simple. Okay, that is where you need to have a help of all these other certifications to basically get across. And one more thing I would like to add, Jen, here, what people are not doing at the moment, you take this cloud service provider as an asset in your risk register. This is a very practical approach I'm giving you for everybody who is watching. This is your biggest takeaway. Nobody will tell you this, what I'm about to tell you, because this is how practically we are implementing this type of services. So what you do, you basically treat cloud as an asset, and then you try to find out what all threats and vulnerabilities are now mapping up to this cloud environment. Only then you will be able to mitigate all the issues that we have discussed for last half an hour. Until and unless you do that, until your risk register does not have a cloud specific risk assessment done, you will always be in a dilemma related to cloud. Okay, so practical hands-on approach, and a big takeaway for everybody who is watching: treat cloud as an asset, then try to find out from your scope, from your applications, from your environment, what kind of threats, what kind of vulnerabilities can come up to that, so that you know what all cloud risks are existing to your environment. Okay, that way you can do that. And there are more standards also to this, which can help you. There is ISO 27017, there is ISO 27018 also, which are dedicated to cloud environment only. So once you have implemented ISO 27001, don't think the journey is done. You can go further also. Okay, so these standards are also there to help you. Again, anybody who is watching, who is struggling to implement these controls or not able to understand any cloud related controls, please feel free to get in touch with us. The numbers are getting displayed below. We can help you in this journey together. Okay.
Yeah. Anything from you, Jayan sir? Do you like to add
That's a
something?
great take that Lava shared now. Definitely. See, this particular conversation we had for 30 minutes clearly differentiates learning theoretically, learning practically, right? So we are talking so much about controls. Maybe controls can be implemented on-prem, on the cloud, right? Controls are there. It will be the same, but focus changes towards the cloud, right? Similarly, our thought process of learning practically should change now. This is a high time. A lot of things are happening in the industry now. That too for GRC professionals, like DPDP has come in place. Privacy is moving up. AI MSc is in full-fledged, it's in full boom, like, right? Definitely. High time for anybody to get into GRC. Is somebody is there in GRC, focus on the career upskilling, right? Great. Thank you that.
Yeah.
Aditi,
Before, yeah, yeah, sir.
yeah, just tell them about from Monday regarding the second podcast also, because I
Yeah,
think there are new people who are watching us now.
yeah. From Monday onwards, we are coming live at 5:30 p.m. to 6:30 or 6 p.m. We can have a half an hour conversation or 1 hour, and you can go ahead with our. You can come up. You can give a comment section. You can ask questions. What do you want from us? What do you want to ask from us? We can have a really great चाय पे चर्चा उस उधर live पे, and you can come there and you can ask a multiple question. We are here to answer those. And yeah, from Monday onwards it's 5:30 p.m. to 6.
Who will they meet
Great, I think.
from in the evening? Who will they meet? Tell them also.
Me and Tanishka is an operation head now, and me is from marketing head. We are here to help you guys, so please come up with those questions and we'll answer them properly. And
So
yeah,
now, yeah,
wrapping up
go ahead.
this
Yeah.
before wrapping up this session, I would like to add something. Like, anyone can read 93 controls, but very few can explain how they implemented them. So we are here for every podcast. We are just explaining you guys that you can implement those things that you are studying only theory. So no, this session, this podcast is here, and we like to give you a opportunity to implement those control. So if you want to move from textbook knowledge to practical implementation confidence, our ISO 27002 batch starts from 9th of March, from Monday to Friday. If you are really serious about becoming implementation ready, this is your opportunity. So yeah.
Great. Yeah, that's a great note to end. Like, again, we have our number displayed on the video, like on the session. Like, you can just call us. You can drop a message on the WhatsApp. We are there to assist you. We are more than happy to assist you and pick the calls. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much,
everyone.
everyone, for joining.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much, sir, for your time.
Thank you too.